Strong Delusions and Lies, Chronicle 2 of the Abyss, Millennial Reign, Chronicle 4 of the Abyss. And of course, they're available now on Amazon Kindle and also on paperback. I will read the scripture. Isaiah 34:11, King James Version. But the cormorant and the bittern shall possess it. The owl also, and the raven shall dwell in it. And he shall stretch out upon it the line of confusion and the stones of emptiness. My second scripture is Revelation 11:1-7, King James Version. And I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. These are the 2 olive trees and the 2 candlesticks, standing before the God of the earth. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouth, and devoureth their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. These have the power to shut heaven, that it rain not in the days of the prophecy, and have power over the waters, to turn them to blood, and to smite the earth with all plagues, as often as they will. And when they have finished their testimony, the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them, and shall overcome them, and kill them. I will skip the table of contents and let's go to the prologue. Mikel looked in his rearview mirror. The black car behind him seemed to be following him. He turned a fast corner, and the car kept up with him. He could almost see into the darkened windows. It looked like 3 men in the car. Mikel's heart started beating fast. He had to lose these people. But how? Where? His Israeli Defense Force training came to his mind. He turned suddenly into a parking lot and went down an alley. He came out the other side and then crossed the street and went into another alley. He pulled his car in front of a tall, stacked load of pallets and hoped they couldn't see him. He watched his side mirror as the car went slowly past the alley. The man with the window rolled down was moving his head to and fro as if he was looking for Mikel's car. The car then sped off. Mikel waited a few minutes, and his heart started to calm down. He reached for his phone and pushed the 1 on the speed dial. Rose's voice came on the phone, and his heart started to calm at the sweet sound of her voice. Rose, I'm coming. I will be there soon. Wait for me in the lobby, dear Tikva. And he hung up the phone before she could answer. He carefully came out the other side of the alley. He couldn't see the car that had been following him. He then started towards the hotel and to Rose. Chapter 1, Wailing Wall. Mikel pulled up hastily to the curb in front of the hotel. The parking valet leaped to life to help him out of the car. Mikel nodded no to him, making a gesture for him to wait, and ran into the hotel. Rose was sitting on one of the lovely purple floral chairs in the lobby area. It so complemented the light lavender pantsuit she had on with a deep purple silk blouse that he had to pause for a moment just to gaze at her. She was so beautiful, her countenance so serene and graceful. Her long dark hair was over one shoulder, in slight curls on the front of her jacket. It made such an alluring picture that his heart began to pound. The expression on her face was so angelic. He marveled at the peace she possessed. Sorry. He had never seen anyone with such peace in them before. She looked like an angel sitting there. He thought of his wife and smiled to himself. Rose wasn't anything like a knot. A knot was feisty, headstrong, and liked a good argument. They had many a battle while she was alive, but they were quick to forgive each other, and their marriage was a solid one. Even though she was so different, he was glad he met Rose, and that maybe he quickly shook away his thoughts. He was getting ahead of himself. He didn't know what she thought of him, not really. She had let him kiss her and hold her hand, but she never said whether she liked him or not. He went up to her quickly, and she smiled a warm smile of welcome as she saw him. "Oh, Mikel, I was getting worried," she said breathlessly. "I didn't know if something had happened to you. It's getting so late. Abby and Joshua should be back soon." "Come, Tikva, my darling girl. I want to show you something. It will only take a short time." He grabbed her hand and he quickly rushed her out to his car at the curb, and they got into it. Mikel hurriedly pulled away into the traffic. He furtively glanced in the rearview mirror, his lips in a tight grimace. Chills went through Rose as she wondered if something was wrong, as she watched his handsome, troubled face. Did it have something to do with her? Then Mikel visibly relaxed, as if something had relieved him. He turned to look at Rose, smiling broadly and drinking in her beauty as he took her hand. "Dearest Rose, I want you to see something, okay?" he said with his beautiful Russian accent that made her heart sigh. "Sure, Mikel, we have a little time before we have to pick up Joshua and Abby." Mikel smiled and drove for a few minutes in silence. He then pulled into a car lot and pulled up into a parking space close to the door. "Wait here for a moment, my darling Tikva. I will be right back." He jumped out of the car, taking the keys with him, and locked the door. He then went into the building. Moments later, he came out to get her and took her to another car. It was the new silver luxury car he had taken her to the seaside in. Abby held her breath as she slid onto the luxury leather seats once more. He slid into the driver's side and started the car. It purred to life, and Rose was thrilled. She couldn't believe she was sitting in a beautiful car with the most handsome man she had ever seen. It was like a scene out of a movie. She let out a soft sigh of satisfaction. Mikel smiled at her and took her hand as he weaved in and out of the traffic. She watched the scenery out of her window speed by. I'm sorry, friends. My throat. Rose gazed up at the dark, cloudy sky, and it seemed to threaten rain. She hoped it wouldn't rain. She hadn't brought her jacket or umbrella with her. Soon, they were in a parking lot by a hill with a forest of trees and shrubs all around. There were cedars, olive trees, and other trees that she didn't recognize. Mikel came around to her side and opened the car door for her. He led her up some very old block stairs and up a winding path of white bricks. And as they topped the hill, Rose caught her breath. She gazed down on the most famous and beautiful scene in the world. It was the Western Wall, the Wailing Wall. Oh, Mikel, Rose breathed softly. It is so beautiful. I have been hoping to see this. She glanced up at him shyly and smiled the most beautiful smile he had ever seen. He put his arm around her shoulders and enjoyed her happiness. She had her hands clasped almost prayerfully and gazed around the huge courtyard of ancient white stone. People were standing at the wall, praying with their tallis, prayer shawls, on their heads, and others were putting small bits of paper into the wall. She knew they were making prayer requests of the Lord. It was a moving and spiritual scene, and tears began to spill from Rose's eyes. Mikel reached into his pocket and pulled out a handkerchief for her. Rose took it from him and then realized it was her own handkerchief. But something was different about it. She looked at it carefully and realized the initials were different. RMG. But her initials were RMF. What on earth? Startled, she looked up at Mikel, and he was smiling broadly with the softest look in his eyes. This is what I wanted to ask you, my dearest Tikva. I had my housekeeper change the last initial to my own. Will you marry me? I don't think I could ever let you go again. For Rose, time stood still. She knew that she had fallen head over heels in love with Mikel. But can this really happen? Can it happen this soon? She looked into his eyes and knew that he loved her more than she had ever known anything else in her life. And she knew that she loved him and that she couldn't live without him any more than not breathing. She nodded her head yes, and suddenly a shaft of light broke through the threatening clouds and enveloped them. As she blinked in the bright light, she knew in her heart God approved of this. Even though their love had happened so fast, it was meant to be, and she had the approval of heaven. Mikel enclosed his arms around her in an embrace. As she tilted her face up to him, he kissed her with such a hungry, passionate kiss that she almost lost her breath and went limp in his arms. He held her and kept her steady as he continued to shower kisses on her mouth and neck. He stood there smelling the enchanting pettiness of her perfume and wished they could remain like this forever. Mikel was happier than he had been in a long time. Certainly happier than he had been since they had first found out about his wife's illness and his world had fallen apart. Mikel led Rose to some huge white stone that formed a low fence that was close by. They sat there for a while longer, looking out at the Wailing Wall. Then he looked at his watch. Rose, my darling Tikva, we must leave. They are probably already waiting for us. Rose sighed and nodded, but she looked at him with a question in her eyes. Tikva, she asked. Ah, yes, Tikva. It means hope, he answered her. My darling, sweet girl, since I've met you, I have hope in my life now. She smiled a radiant smile at him that melted his heart. He was so in love with her. He was beside himself with happiness. He had forgotten everything that happened this morning. Or had he? There was a nagging question in his mind that spoiled this beautiful day. What was he going to do? Then it came to him. He knew what had to be done. Rose did not want this moment to end. She was happier than she had ever been in her life. Mikel was so perfect. She was so much in love. She pushed aside all the doubts that kept cropping up in her mind. Mikel grabbed her hand, and they went back down the ancient steps to the car. He opened the car door for her and asked her, "Do you like the car?" "Oh, yes, Mikel, it's so beautiful." "I'm glad," he said with a big smile, "because I bought it." Rose smiled a beautiful smile of happiness and serenity at Mikel as she slid onto the seat and buckled her seatbelt. Mikel went to the other side of the car and slid into the driver's seat. He then buckled his seatbelt, and with joy bursting from his heart, he took her hand and turned the car towards the hotel. In the distance, hidden under a grove of trees, 3 men in a black car watched the silver car move away from them. "Should we follow them, Gustav?" the huge older man asked roughly in Hebrew. Gustav sat there and didn't say anything for a moment. He scratched his burly head and then replied softly in English, as if to himself, "Another day, my friend. Another day. You won't be able to get out of this so easily, like when we were children. Another day." The 2 men with him looked at each other in confusion and shrugged their shoulders because they didn't understand English. Gustav sighed and then signaled the driver to leave. And that, dear friends, is the end of Chapter 1 of Stones of Emptiness, Chronicle 3 of the ABIS, Britiany A Christian. I hope that you're as excited about this story as I was in writing it. I pray that you're enjoying it. And hey, drop me a comment. Let me know what you think. I mean, I would love to hear what you think about Rose and Abigail and Joshua and Mikel. I think it's a very romantic story. Well, friends, I'll go ahead and close for now. Little baby kitten is there. She's looking at the food. I think she wants wet food. Okay, dear friends, I'll let you go for now. You have a good rest of the afternoon. And join me again next time for Chapter 2 of Stones of Emptiness, Chronicle 3 of the ABIS, with the lovely girl in a field of snow. Okay? All right. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.